Good morning to everybody and welcome. I'm Corinne Rosborne-Patterson, elected member for Mole Valley District Council for Capel and Newdigate. I live in one of the most beautiful wards in the district. I'm very fortunate to be the cabinet member for people and rural Mole Valley, right in the rural heart of our district, covering all the community issues. And I've been very privileged to be a councillor for the last 8 years. Over decades, our rural economy has changed dramatically. Whilst farming was once the backbone of Mole Valley, several decades have seen decline of this. We've seen a steady increase of agricultural land used for residential use, providing homes for people commuting into London, as well as the emergence of other employment hubs and industrial units, the impact of Gatwick and the huge growth of technology and the internet. All of these things have had a great effect on our way of life and how we live, and the way and farms have had to diversify to support the rural way of life and the land that they're caretakers of. We need to think very carefully about how we diversify. We need to create economic growth, jobs for local people, affordable housing for our children and young families, and a sustainable Mole Valley, embracing new opportunities as they arise. In 2016, when this became my council portfolio, I was set with a task to do a rural strategy. This rural strategy had the vision to support thriving, inclusive and sustainable rural areas which enhance the prospects for Mole Valley's rural communities and businesses and preserve the value of the district's natural assets for future generations. Since the strategy was published, we've been working on a number of identified strategic actions outlined in the 2018 action plan. One of those actions, one of the key actions, is this summit, and this is the first time we've ever held it, so it's lovely to see a great turnout. The intention of this is to share knowledge, network, gain insight into how we can support the rural areas as a vibrant local economy. I really appreciate all of you taking the day out today of your working lives to come here and attend this event. We have 6 speakers today, and all of them are local, inspirational subject matter experts who have been invited to cover priority issues from within the strategy. We also have many stands, as you know, outside the conference room, of a wide range of specialists, community groups, organisations with expertise in working in the rural environment. And they're there to answer any questions. So please use today as an opportunity to go and get contact details and network with other people. Together we can continue to grow a prosperous, sustainable and viable rural economy, strengthen our rural communities and protect our environment whilst creating economic prosperity. I will now hand you over to our Master of Ceremonies for today, who I'm thrilled accepted our request to help us. You may have heard his voice on the tram line in Croydon, telling you where the next stop is. We also share a common interest in railways. However, my trains can be put back in their boxes, unlike the Brighton Bell or the Bluebell Railway. Please give a very warm welcome to well-known author and journalist, Mr. Nicholas Owen.
Thank you very much. Corinne, good morning to all of you. Thank you very much indeed for that introduction. I told you to be as rude as possible. You didn't even get started on being rude. It was very good. Fantastic, this. Where shall I start? I must tell you this. Last week I was hosting a conference in Manchester, which was great, you know, it was fine. And next week I'm hosting a conference in Bilbao. Not too bad, is it? But actually, this is fantastic, is it not? First of all, to see so many of you here in these fantastically beautiful surroundings that we're in, and I'm so pleased. I'm just round the corner. I'm about 100 yards over the border into Reigate. Sorry about that. Well, I get asked to do a lot of things with Mole Valley. I always feel like a sort of ambassador, missionary, have of it what you will. But I'm a great admirer of what happens in Mole Valley. And one thing that I learned this morning was just how big Mole Valley is in terms of its geographical area, and so much of course is rural, and that's why we're talking about rural issues today. A summit, a rural summit. I've done an awful lot of conferences and things in my time, ladies and gentlemen, but summit, I've never chaired a summit before. Here's another one, darling. Well done, well done. Oh, this place. You and I were talking outside, sir. I know this place well. Who else knows this place well? Who's been on the speed school? Who's been to speed school here? Yeah. We've all been to bloody speed school. Yeah, I know. I know. The bloke who did my speech, God, never so say, he's not here, is he? No. He wore a very short sleeve white shirt, which is fine, and I don't mind that, but he also had a lot of pens in his top pocket. There was something about this man that somehow, and we were all resentful about being there. You know, you're resentful. I'm a good driver. Why am I here at all? You know, and he and I got off to a very bad start because it was Bank Holiday Monday, and we were all even more resentful. And he said, "Well, now Bank Holiday Monday. Now, anybody got any questions? Nice to be here, even on a bank holiday, isn't it?" Silence from everybody except I said, "No, it's not. Get on with it." That was a bad start. But let me tell you this, one thing I would say, I learnt a lot. If you get to Speed Awareness School, if that bloody camera at Merstham catches you, which is the one that gets all my friends and me, we learned a lot, and it was jolly good. Okay, I look round quickly, I see a lot of people I know, and it's fantastic, and I say, Mark Jones, who runs the Red Lion pub down the road, sir, reopened again. Thank goodness for that. I told you, Brenda and I walked past the other day. It's closed. What? Disaster. But you've done a refurbishment job. And you gave employment to my eldest granddaughter in the summer, which she was very grateful. Well done, you. And she had a great time, and that's fine. She's now at Liverpool University. I've got a grandchild at university. God, how did that happen? Oh, my God. People like Stephen Rolfe is here, worrying about transport issues and so on. I share, I'm sure, with many of you, the sort of preoccupations that we're going to be talking about today, all sorts of things. Transport is one very, very big, lively local issue. Farming, where are we going with that? Broadband, broadband, man, jolly good. Do they have to dig up my lane every time they put in some new broadband, which doesn't work anyway? You know, the usual thing, the usual quit. Oh, good, maybe. But anyway, so I share a lot of your preoccupations, frankly, I really do. So what I'm going to do, just explain to you how it's going to work. After this, I shall introduce the first of three speakers. We'll come up here, 1, 2, 3. They have 10 minutes each. We will be reasonably strict about this. Yeah, there's a clock there. Look, yeah. I've only spoken for 5 minutes. I've got a bit of time to go, but I will still wrap up early. 10 minutes. We'll allow them 10 minutes. If you look like running on speakers, I'll probably gently stop you. First speaker up, 10 minutes back. Second one back. Third one back. At the end of that, we will have some time for questions. Please do come up with them. Let's hear from you. I always say, for people like me, our job is to ask questions, and it's been my life, and I'll ask questions all day and all night, and you'll regret you ever asked me. But I really want to hear from you out here. One thing I would say, we're talking about Mole Valley, we're talking about Mole Valley Council. We have council elections not too far away. What I'm not interested in hearing is political point scoring by anybody. I'm sure you understand that. Councillors and others, let's not get into, you know, who will do a better job on this, that and the other. I don't think that will help us. We're trying to look at specific sort of ways of improving life, making connections, and so on. Then we have a break, short break, and then we have another lot of 3, and the 3, and another lot of questions, and then we have a short lunch, and then we get out while this day is still absolutely fantastic. Okay, that's my introduction. Don't think I've missed anything out. No, I don't think I have yet. Okay, let's get started. Our first speaker, and we're very, very grateful to all of them for coming along and facing this crowded room. I must say, I did wonder whether you would fill the place, and you have. So the speakers are going to be very close attention paid to them. First one up is Professor Caroline Scarles, who is Professor of Tourism at the University of Surrey. Will you give her a very warm welcome as our first speaker?
Thank you very much indeed, Nicholas. And I just again, thank you very much for all of you for coming out and supporting this first summit. It really is a privilege and a real pleasure to come and talk to you about some of the challenges, some of the issues, and hopefully together we can come up with some potential solutions as to how we can all move forward. So I suppose my title gives it away. I'm a Professor of Tourism. It's such a great job. I get to travel the world. I get to work in this area, and it really is wonderful. But in doing that, it allows me to think slightly differently, talking to people like yourselves, really kind of understanding what it is that tourism is part of our communities, part of our environments, part of our societies, And so what I'd like to do today is just share with you a few points so that we can begin to challenge how we understand tourism in rural economies, how we can begin to understand the opportunities that it holds and the contributions it's making, because it's not something that sits disjunct from our everyday lives. It's something that's fundamentally integral to what we do and how we can operate as businesses, whether we are small, one or two person businesses, right through to the larger organisations. And I know we've got representation across that spectrum in the room today. So I'm going to talk about tourism today, challenges of collaboration and opportunities. So this is where I would like to start, is the idea that tourism is not something that happens outside our everyday practice. There's somebody who once said, John Urry, a sociologist, who once said, we are all tourists all of the time, whether we like it or not. Now, actually, for many of you, you might think, well, wait a minute, tourism is just what I do on holiday. It's just what I do when a busload of tourists turn up at my event or turn up somewhere. It's not. It's integrated into society. We see it benefiting society in a whole range of ways, whether it's directly or indirectly. And of course, what happens with tourism is that we get a great mobility of people around, and they bring opportunity. They bring opportunity for investment, the redistribution of that wealth within our economies. And it's really then important that we can do what we can to make sure that that redistribution of wealth actually happens, that we all begin to benefit from the opportunities and, of course, the benefits that tourism brings. Now, of course, it does bring some challenges. We think about how people are connected in this world now. Social media, technology, all these different opportunities, and that does bring with it some uncertainty. It does bring with it, how do you cope with this? You know, if it's maybe one or two people working in an organisation, how do you manage a social media presence and a virtual presence as well as managing your day-to-day? So again, these are real issues that we're facing, but with many other issues, there are potential ways in which we can collaborate and provide solutions. So again, just some overviews. Some of these statistics are a little bit dated now, but again, looking to update them soon. But 126.9 billion contributions to UK GDP in 2013 from tourism alone. You know, it'll be worth 257.4 billion by 2025. Tourism is a significant contributor to our economy. And if we take it one level lower, I'm sorry, I don't have the figures for Moe Valley specifically, but if we take it one level lower to the county level, we're looking at a 2 billion direct contribution from tourism every year into our economy. Now, again, that is not insignificant. You think then about the 35,000 jobs that are created, and that's just direct. That doesn't include the subcontractors and the suppliers and the wider networks that are involved in the tourism industry, of which you are all part of. You know, Angus, we were just speaking before about the importance of infrastructure, broadband, the support, the transport, the rail. We've got people from all over. We've got the representation from the Moe Valley Police as well. Again, that's all absolutely vital to the successful realisation of tourism in our economies and tourism in our communities. So we've got to, yes, think about these direct benefits, but we've also got to think about the indirect benefits and the indirect opportunities that come forward. So, of course, some of the challenges that we are facing at the moment. You did mention about not turning this into a political exchange, and I absolutely agree with that. But to not actually recognise the importance of that would be foolish of us at this point in time. Our political landscape is changing. It's constantly changing in some way, shape or form, but we are facing a particular period of uncertainty at this point in time. The B word does come up later in the presentation, a bit of forewarning, but we have to recognise that and we have to embrace that. Because whilst we're seeing all these issues and challenges and contestations between how different political parties think and even within political parties how they're thinking, the key overriding message that I really would like for us to think about and reflect on is the importance of collaboration, the importance of working together, the importance of stewardship, and the way in which we can protect the economy that we have around us, the beautiful landscape, the rural landscape, the importance of that legacy of culture and identity, and we work together to be able to actually harness that and realise the potential. Now, for some of you that might seem idealistic, even romantic. But actually, like Nicholas was saying, I don't live in Moe Valley, but I live down the road just south of Guildford. so proud to live somewhere. Obviously, I'm Scottish, so I'm not originally from here, but so proud to be able to say that actually part of my job, part of my role as a professor and academic is to build these relationships. So I sit, yes, on the board of Visit Surrey as well. I work at the university, and I've already been talking with many of you about the ways in which we can collaborate going forward. So yes, we are in this position of turmoil, we are in this position of change, but it's about creating stability in that change that becomes important. Big issues around climate change. Chris, we were chatting just before, I don't know where you're sat now, but about Denby's. I mean, the wine industry at this point in time is a great example of how climate change is directly impacting the work that we are able to engage in and the products, the services that we are able to offer. We're in the middle of the warmest February in history in the UK records. That's changing what we are able to do within our communities. We are living in a world of the experience economy. People want to know what the experiences that they can have when they come to places like Mole Valley. They want to know about the food that they can have, the drinks that they can have, the cultural experiences that they can engage with, how they can meet people, how they can learn more and be part of that landscape, part of that community for whatever shorter period of time that is. And remember, of course, that when we talk about tourism in our communities, the vast majority of people we're talking about are day visitors, people like us, going out for a day out, taking our families out. We do have, of course, Gatwick and Heathrow and sandwiched in between, of course we are. But actually, if we forget about the people who are the bread and butter of our businesses and our organisations, we begin to miss that opportunity. So again, rethinking how we feel and what we think about tourism, recognising it as an experience, working together to create those experiences. If you know there's an event going on in an organisation or a park or whatever beside you, and you can offer support through, say, a restaurant experience or hotel, why not work together? Some of you do this very well already. I know that. I'm preaching to converted in many ways. But actually looking at how we can collaborate together to create the experiences of our economy in the rural environment becomes absolutely vital. I've spoken before about technology and media. The way in which, and I hope have we got a hashtag for this event? Have we got somewhere that we can tweet about it? And if somebody's nodding, maybe we can share that in a moment. But again, getting the word out there, celebrating what we do, becoming more confident with the power of social media and of technology, integrating technology and not seeing it as something to be feared, not something that was going to take so much resource, okay? So tourism becomes integral to our economy and our society. We need to think about it beyond these silos. It doesn't happen in isolation. It is fundamental to our economies. You can see the benefits, tourism, leisure, recreation in the Ramblers groups, Denby's, the park run. Chris, I told you I park run at Denby's in the slides. So again, the park run there right in the middle. Thinking about the way in which we can engage with this market in different ways. Thinking about how we can diversify, I'm sure you're all very familiar with that term, but the diversification, being able to see opportunities as it arise. And it's through the conversations with our business neighbours that we can then begin to see things differently. So think differently, partnerships, collaborations, stewardships. I'm not going to dwell on this because I know it's an area of hesitation for many people. But actually, whether we like it or not, we are all on this spectrum of being digitally integrated. That sounds quite academic, I know, but we are. Most of us have got smartphones. That, by its very nature, means that we are connected. Some of us go so far as to integrate kind of cardless technology access systems. Other people are less engaged in those. But the point is don't be afraid of it. Open an opportunity, create and have a look and see what you can and what capacity you have. And I'm more than happy to have conversations with people if there's any questions around this going forward. The other thing, again, just to kind of begin to finish up here, one of the things that we talk about when we talk about collaboration and stewardship is the importance of social good. We actually, as we've recognised already, we live and we are so fortunate to live and work in a beautiful part of the world, not just the country, but the world. And actually, if we can utilise, so we have the Sustainable Development Global Goals, isn't it a wonderful opportunity for us, not just to protect the landscape and the heritage and the cultures that we have, but also to look at ways in which we can integrate training and skills development for the local community, create local employment opportunities. Again, I know I'm preaching to the converted here. How do we collaborate with organisations like local colleges and schools more deeply? How are we able to actually connect with third sector, with charities, and begin to create opportunities for getting more people into our landscapes, more people into our economies and into rural environments? Issues around accessibility. These are just some examples from across the world. But if you go and you search for global goals, you can find many, many more. And I'm going to leave you with one thing that pushes it even further. I'm involved in some really exciting research at the moment, and if you want to talk to me more about it, I'm more than happy to. And we're looking at the ways in which we can use assistive and immersive technologies to bring tourism, outdoor, recreation, leisure, whatever you want to call it, experiences to people who are otherwise immobile and cannot access these spaces. So again, thinking about not just about getting people to come to you, but how you can use this technology to reach out to new markets, new audiences that you otherwise may not be able to reach. So again, really encouraging you to think differently. These tourism doesn't exist in a silo. It doesn't exist as something that is unique and separate, but actually we really need to think about the many, many different ways in which we can integrate everything that we do in this room further and further into society. That's me, time's up. How long's that been up for? Quite a while. Sorry. Thank you very much indeed.
Caroline, thank you very much. That's super. Thank you. Excellent. Well done. Lovely. That was a terrific start. I know that, we've had plenty of time. Lots of people have been chatting earlier, and you're going to have more time to chat. Questions as well, but these people are not going anywhere very fast today, so do jump on. I thought some of that stuff was utterly fascinating, and I already have about 45 questions, but I won't be dominating, I promise. Right, second up, Angus Denny, Broadband for Surrey Hills. Big welcome to him, please.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Broadband for Surrey Hills. I'm Angus Denny. I don't know how much you've heard of BASH as we're known, but we're deploying full fibre broadband into the Surrey Hills. And if I make this thing work like that, the obvious question is, why are we doing that? Because you've got BT and you've got Virgin and so on out there. Well, for those reasons, really. Frustration that there's lots of areas of the Surrey Hills, Guildford and Mole Valley in particular, where you just can't get the speed and reliability that you can from full fibre. There's lack of choice. You're sort of mandated to go to a particular provider. It's also future-proof. We know how fast the broadband is becoming pervasive in society, and how yesterday's speeds are no longer adequate today, and today's speeds are going to be no longer adequate in the future. And we're doing this as a community project as well, so we have a real sense of being able to give back to the rural communities. So what are we doing? Well, it's nothing new. This has already been done before. We do this. We're modelled on an outfit in Lancashire called Broadband for the Rural North, or BARN. You can look it up. They have 5,000 subscribers over an area of 1,500 square miles, and that was last year. Actually, I think it's about 5,500 now. They're up to. So, really proven technology. We're doing it on a voluntary basis. So we're driven by volunteers, which means that we can do it. We can deploy the fibre very cheaply. It's funded by the community. It's strictly not for profit. We're a community benefit society, which means that we are not in it for making a profit. Any monies that we do make eventually will get ploughed back into the community. So it's managed and run by the community for the community. We're completely independent of other utility providers. So we are not dependent on anybody else. We have we're completely our own independent technology. And it's not just a pipe dream. We're actually live now. We're providing service to some of our early customers. So how does it work? Two aspects really. There's the installation and there's the operational aspects. So we do some route planning and we need way leaves. One of the models it works on is that we look for freeway leaves over from landowners to get our duct and fibre into the ground. And because we're a not-for-profit, that makes it much easier and much more attractive for people to, they're happy for it to be on that basis. We do soft dig, so we're not digging up roads and pavements and causing all that disruption. We go around the back effectively, so we go across fields, through woodland in gardens. It's in two phases. We install duct or pipe, effectively. It's an orange pipe, a bit like a plastic water pipe. We can do that by either just mole ploughing it into the ground. For example, yesterday we covered about 400 metres of ground in an afternoon, just putting the duct in. Once we've got the duct in, then the fibre optic cable itself is literally blown through the duct by compressed air. So very fast, very simple, no disruption, no mess. So once we've got it installed, then operationally, we have a direct connection from our hub at near Silent Pool in Guildford to Telehouse North in Docklands, which is the UK internet hub. So all the main providers go into Telehouse North. So we have a direct connection, not dependent on BT or anybody else. All the big providers, so BBC, Google, Amazon, everybody goes directly into there. So we have a fantastic connection. And it's monitored as well because we're working with Barn, Broadband for the Rural North. We have it 24/7 network monitors. As soon as a problem, if there's a problem, we can pick it up. So how are we doing? Just a few photographs there. I talked about mole ploughing the duct into the ground, that orange pipe just behind a tractor. It's quite scenic as well. We were coming down the North Downs from our connection on Staple Lane up above Silent Pool. Down there, blowing the fibre machines, a big drum of fibre at the top there. That black gets blown by that little machine in the middle, that yellow thing, down through the orange duct. There's quite a bit of technology behind it. That's a cabinet with the main technology to connect to connect the internet. And we have to join it all up. So splicing the fibre is quite a skilled job for people to do. Whilst we're volunteers at the moment, we eventually hope to become a business and have full-time employees, so we will be able to contribute to the local economy by employing people. So what are the benefits of this service? Well, the first and foremost is the speed. And if you look at those two numbers there, that's a speed test that you can, some people may recognise, you can run on your internet. So that's 942 megabytes download and upload the same, in fact slightly more, 946. Now if you wanted to get that from a regular provider, a BT or Virgin, ask them, even if they would offer it you, it would be hugely expensive to get that service. So it's truly symmetric. The numbers are effectively the same. Up and down speed is the same. So what does that allow? You can see some of the benefits there. Lag-free interactive working, so particularly attractive for businesses or individuals working at home that reduce some of the commuting times and take some of the traffic off the road. People work at home because they got the broadband speed to be able to do it. And some high bandwidth business services. Some of the other things that you can do, streaming, apps, gaming, TV, and it doesn't matter how many people in your household are doing it. So if you want to work from home and you've got kids that are wanting to play games or watch videos and so on, no problem at all. Absolutely allows it. It's very reliable. It's in the ground, and because it's fibre optic, it's not affected, not like copper. It's not affected by the time of the day or water, so it's completely impervious to water. Unlike electricity, it doesn't. You don't have any problems with that. We're completely independent, as I mentioned, not reliant on other providers, and I've already mentioned that it's managed network. So how does it cost? There's two elements to getting the system installed. We look for investment, and because we are a not-for-profit community benefit society, it's any investment that individuals make, businesses make, is subject to tax relief. So you get tax relief by investment, and you're buying shares. So you're becoming an investor in the company, which means that you're not just paying a charge to a provider. You become part of the company, and eventually the plan will be to pay interest. We're not. For some reason I don't understand, not they call them dividends, they're interest. We would pay interest, and they're redeemable eventually, subject to, not immediately, but it's not, I would not recommend it to anybody as a financial investment. It's a community benefit investment. So that's how we get that provides the upfront cost to buy the materials, and you saw in some of those photographs. So if you're an end user and want to subscribe, you pay a connection cost, which we offer for free for investors that provide above a certain threshold, and then there is a monthly charge as well to operate to run the service. So just finally, how do we get started? How do we decide where to take the network? As you can imagine, there is much more demand than we have capacity to satisfy. Being a small starter, everybody says, "Well, that's a fantastic broadband speed. Oh, I want some of that. Can you come to me?" The answer is yes, but we look for three factors as to allow us to prioritise where to go with the network. So, do we have investment? So have we got investors willing to invest, to give us to pay for the installation, the route installation, the materials, and so on? What kind of take up have we got? What proportion of households or businesses that we go past would have an interest in subscribing to the service, so we can get some idea of our monthly revenue? And we're also looking for volunteers, people to get involved in delivering the service, either digging or helping, or lots of back office jobs as well. So that is it. We have a website, gigupanddown.net. Please do go and have a look. Tells you a bit more about it. That's it. Is it questions now, or
no? Questions a bit later. But thank you
later.
very much, Angus. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you again. Whoa! I'm sure a lot of people will have questions about all of that. That went past. It was well done. An amazing story. Okay, let's come to a subject I do know something about. That's the local pub. The Red Lion is run by Mark Jones. He's run lots of other pubs in his time. He's quite a character altogether. We're delighted that he's given them some time to come here today. Will you give a warm welcome to Mark Jones?
So good morning everybody. Yes, my name's Mark Jones. I think it's best to start off, if you cut me in the middle, from the early 80s you'd see an oak tree of pubs, and you'd see how they run and what they do. So anything about pubs, anyone knows me. My wife sat at the back there. I talk about pubs all day long and had quite a lot of pubs. So anything about pubs, I'm the man. I am a publican. I've got a beautiful pub down the road here. I consult in the business to large corporations and small individuals. Business coach is one of my roles, and also pub pundit. So I comment on the business quite a lot. So I was asked to come today because a lot of the pubs I've had, I've been in rural locations. So apparently I know about that. So let's have a look. Here's my journey. I just thought I'd start so you know who I am. I started my life in the Spring Tavern in Your Village in the Fox and Hound in Wadington. I was managed then, so I used to work for a managed operator. So that was Bash Charrington's. Then I worked for them in the offices in the south of the UK. And in 2002, I set up a company called Time Well Spent Limited. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then I've had a couple of consultancy businesses. And more recently is the Mr. Group, which is a company I run. There's a few of us that we're a solution-based company for pubs in and around UK-based. So if we look at Time Well Spent, many people would know me from that journey. These are the pubs I had in chronological order, and they were all sold 4 months ago, except for the Red Lion down the road, which we pulled out. So if we look at these ones, for example, I'd probably say 70 to 80% of those pubs are in rural locations. So it was befitting that they asked me to come along today and talk about what I feel is important in the pub industry, rural communities, and what we do as a pub. We all know, I think we could all put our hands up to realise how difficult the pub industry is at the moment, but I don't think so. I think there are fixes and solutions. We just got to get our heads around them. Yeah, so there's some lovely sites in there, and not so lovely sites in there. I learned afterwards having them. Yes, but as I said, so all of those there. Interestingly, for some reason, I went on a pub binge and brought 10 pubs in 2 years. That's one every 10 weeks. Brought and traded up and refitted. So getting involved in the local communities for me is a natural part of what my life is. I have no problem with that at all. No problem walking into any society or village hall and saying, hello, I own the pub, can we talk about what we can do for you? So if we have a look now though, so this is what I do now, the Red Lion, which is a beautiful location up the road, which of course you're all invited to come and have a wonderful discounted meal for. I would, if the audience was smaller, I'd say free, but it's far too large for that, even though I am very generous. Yeah, and the Mr. Group is a group that I own and run, and like I said, it's a solution-based company. So, the Mr. Group, just to summarise that, just so you know, that's the hat I wear, Publican Mr. Group. We deal with, I've put this slide together so you can see, there's primarily 7 main brands within the Mr. Group that we work with. But if you look at the top one, you'll see that try before you buy. We actually encourage people to come and try the pub before you go and buy a pub. Stand behind the bar. What does it feel like? What does it feel like to open up? What does it feel like to close? What does it feel like to have awkward customers and really nice customers? What does that feel like? We then say it's important that people get to identify their brand in their head in a pub. Even if you've got one pub, it's important that you have a veneer, I call it veneer management. We talk about that. Team Toolbox, training guides, silent recruiter. Obviously, we all need staff. Interestingly, I was the second largest employer around here a number of years ago, and I think I've directly employed about 2,000 people in the area over my young, tender years. I know what you're all thinking. How can you be so young? With the sales development, of course, we've got to sell more goods. Of course, we do that in pubs. Stealth shoppers, we teach people how to rain check themselves by shopping in on themselves, as it were. And then partnership thinking, which is primarily my box I work in with clients. And that's about getting the right support structure around you. And I think we can all agree that that's really what a rural summit is really about, is support structures for difficult times that people might be going through in these areas. So I thought what I would do, though, I didn't know the audience and who was going to be here, so I thought I'd talk about what pubs are, a quick gamut through. Good. So I thought I quickly do this. So I just thought I'd talk about the style of trading pubs in the UK and what happened here. So we've got one managed, Harvester, Witherspoons, managed. I work for them. They give me the promotion. I do it. That's it. I get paid. I go home. Got it? We then have, next step up is tenanted. Tenanted, I would then pay you £30,000 to have your pub, but I have to buy everything that you tell me that I have to sell. Okay, at the end of the tenancy, I would give that tenancy back and I would get my £30,000 back from the fixtures and fittings and I walk away. Nothing in there, no capital gains. We all following this? Good. Next one, leased. Leased is like if I take a 20-year lease on a pub, big book, no one can touch me afterwards, 20 years it's worth mine. However, you might come along and say, hey, I love that pub, I'll give you £1 for that pub, and I'll say, great, and then you buy the remainder of what I have on that lease. All good? So leases are good because they involve capital allowances. One of the problems that we've had in the rural locations is the lease values, which are primarily what people run pubs around here, unless they're obviously the large corporations, say, like the Pheasant, Hartsfield Manor, etc., the lease values have gone down they've virtually been annihilated in the last number of years, the lease values. And then we've got freehold, like buying your house. Nice and simple. You pay a mortgage or you bought it outright. So what we have here then, we all know, a quarter of the UK pubs have disappeared in 35 years. Wow. Astonishing rate, 18 pubs a day is still closing. It's slowing down. We hit a peak of 35 pubs a day were closing at some points back in 3-4 years ago. And interestingly, between 2000, I just put this stat up. I could put slides and slides of stats of the UK pub industry. But between 2008 and 2000, beer duty went up by 42%. At the same time, we lost 5,000 pubs and beer sales fell by 24%. So a really difficult industry to be involved in there. I don't know where that is, by the way. That's not from around here. I don't think so anyway, a random picture. Why the decline? Just quickly go through this. Increased cost that can't be passed on to consumer. Butter goes up 40% in 1 week, comes back down 40% the next. That's how volatile the pricing is. Consumers' habits have changed. And pubs are not reacted well enough to that. Consumers' habits have changed, certainly the last 20 years. We could all still talk about the smoking ban and the driving and all that kind of stuff. But actually, if you look further into it, the consumer habits have wildly changed in our pub industry. Outside office, supermarket, cinemas. Fantastic, isn't it? Go to a supermarket now, I can have a 3-course meal, press a button, and my chair turns around, and I can watch the cinema. That's the kind of competition we're up against in the pub market. The home, it's a better luxury, improved market. I've always said, whenever I consult, that the pub, it's the home is our biggest competitor. It's not the next pub down the road. It's the home. When IKEA was brought up, suddenly everyone's house is better, bottles of wine taste better, cheaper as well. We are more health conscious, not me. I'm still doing it for us ones that are not. But apparently that's out there now. And I don't know if you've heard of it, vegans, vegetarians, yeah, so we all have to. Millennials, the young people don't have the same view as we would have had when we were 18 growing up around rural pubs. Some pubs have technology that's not up to date. It's not up to date, so it's an important message you were saying about broadband. We feel that a lot in the pub industry. If it was much better, we could do so much better with it. Larger companies over dominant market share. This is an interesting one, one that most people don't see. So let's talk about a pub that's just opened up in Forest Green. Okay, this pub, a beautiful pub, millions spent on it. But I can guarantee, I've just sold 2 pubs either side of this pub, and I can guarantee you that pub there, if it was doing £20,000 before, and now it does £50,000 a week, you can guarantee that £30,000 would have had to come from somewhere. Now, the 2 pubs I just sold either side of them, they were doing £10,000 a week, and even I couldn't make much money out of them. Imagine, 50,000 comes in, extra 30,000 from somewhere, that's 5 pubs which will be lost, 5 grand a week, and can they have the skills to develop that business? That's the challenge. Historic attitude by publicans don't reflect trends. You know, these people want to come out for coffee. You know, you can't do that anymore. Yeah, so is it a dead duck? I would say no, completely. Random couple that I know at the bar. The future is looking brighter. Just very quickly here, very quickly. The decline of closures now, it's the lowest records ever since. That's good news for us. It's slowed down. You could say we were overpopulated. Were we overpopulated? Were there too many pubs? Perhaps so. Perhaps so. The acceptance by many is that change is required. Things like being asked to speak today. We know this change has got to happen to a rural pub. We are a community centre at its heart. Duty-free tax relief, we get £1,000, well, we do up until the 29th of March anyway, £1,000 for a subsidy per year off council rates, and also duty-free, so they're doing something up the top there to say that they're not putting more taxes on beer at the moment. Community activity equals well-being for all. We know that we're a community centre at the heart of what we do, and consumers are falling back in love with the Greatest British Pub. Perhaps that might be something after the 29th. Technology has been rolled out to reflect consumers' needs. Pubs offers are changing to attract new consumers. We consult with people and we help people run pubs. Some people come out with some really great ideas now to make pubs a real flagship of what retail should be. We're a community asset. That's what we are. Every pub you know, every pub you drive past, we're a community asset. Wow, is that 10 minutes already? And a great need for a break for a wired-up society like we all are. So, let's quickly, my top 10, and I'll rush through these now. My top 10. Don't be afraid to change it. If you have one, squeeze every penny out of every bit of space. Yeah, that's rentaroom.com. If you've got 4 rooms upstairs, do that. We teach that a lot. Don't be afraid to change everything you've got, barbecues outside, etc. Keep business separate to a lifestyle. Don't get yourself immersed in it too heavily. Involve your community. It's surprising what you can achieve. It's amazing when you say to a community, hey, do you want to use me for your book club, your chess club, whatever club that you're doing? And they do react. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Premium service standards, products key. I was in Amsterdam last week with Heineken, and they were saying that if you premialise something now, apparently, if you don't premialise, you're at 90% risk of failure than if you do premialise it. The idea that someone asking for a gin and tonic, now you can't just put a Schweppes and a Gordon's Never one piece of ice and a limp piece of lemon in it. It has to be big bold, because that's what people are used to. Premialisation is good. Know your market and appeal to it. Yeah, you don't need to put, I've taken over pubs and refurbished pubs where completely the wrong market they were in before. So you've got to know what your market is. Celebrate that you hold a community asset. Celebrate it. Every pub I had, I celebrated it. None of them are shut. All the pubs I've had, none of them are shut, and they thrive well. You don't have to be big to be beautiful. Yes, that's one for me, I think. And smiling publican is a happy P&L. And on that note, sorry for running over time. That's my daughter. Thanks for listening. And if you want to give me a call, my card's over there. Thank you very much.
Well done. Well done. Super, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. And all three of you have been models of... It is hard. 10 minutes is hard. But you've done very, very well. Right, we've got a few minutes for questions. Now, who wants to set us off on any questions? Lady at the back, jolly good. We do have microphones. We do have roving microphones somewhere. But right at the back there. But you can probably hear you. Actually, if you've got a big voice, shout. That's it. Oh, there we are. Got the mic. Yeah, jolly good. And would you tell us who you are and if it's a particular question you want to direct?
I'm Cathy Miles, and I run Rural Surrey Leader Grant Funding. In our grant funding scheme, we funded lots of local businesses who produce food, local breweries, and local producers and farmers that produce food. Mark, in your talk about your pubs, you didn't mention any buy local or local foods or local drinks. Is that something that you promote and that works for pubs? Or?
I think absolutely. Obviously, time permitting on that one. But in my view, if the operators that operate the pubs, you've got to remember we were managed, so I managed these pubs, managed operators. Anyone that would ever put their hands up and say, can I have a local produce, would be my first thing, a guaranteed yes. Unfortunately, margins get tighter and tighter. If you buy a rack of lamb from the local butcher, you can guarantee it's going to be probably about 20% more price than you are from a wholesale retailer. But in the main, if you can advertise it on your menu, we found that. We used to advertise on menus at local butchers. Brilliant offset. People really like to buy into the local produce. So to answer your question, bigger scale, probably not so much. Smaller scale, definitely should do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another one somewhere in the room. Yes, a lady here. Thank you very much. Just say who you are, please. And
Margaret Cooksey, and one of my roles is chairman of the Dorking and District Town Twinning Association. Leatherhead has a French twin, Dorking has a French and a German one of long standing, but we also have a new Italian twin. And I wondered if Professor Coase would suggest whether she thinks that town twinning can help the rural economy, can help local businesses, and that they should be prepared to support the twinning process in as many ways as they possibly can.
it's a good one. Don't hear so much about twinning these days.
No,
it
it's a
seems
really
to me.
good. It's a really good question. It's not going to be. It's not something I will claim to know lots about, other than I know twinning does exist. But from what I would imagine, when you have that collaboration across the different communities, again, getting the partnership right is what is important. You need to find the partner that best reflects the values of the community and the identity of the community that you are first, and then you do that mutual learning and mutual development together. Yes, there's a lot more I think that communities who are already twinned can do to actually promote themselves and use that as a leverage to engage in more exchanges and more kind of interactions between communities. But certainly I think the most important thing is getting the partner right. Because obviously if you partner with somebody that's completely wrong and doesn't reflect your values, then it's not going to work at all. And it comes back to the point, and I think it links to what you were talking about. It's a random link, but it does link to what you're talking about, which is about that identity. There's a lot of work and research that's been done on the importance of local food, local produce, and actually creating those experiences, and people will buy into those. Yes, absolutely agree. There are issues around P&L and making sure that your margins are right, but actually if you offer a higher end product, and that goes from everything from culture, events with a twin partner right through to the lamb that you've got on your plate, if you invest in that premium, then it should work. I know that doesn't directly answer your question. I don't know that much about twinning, so I'm not going to pretend I do.
Thank you very much. Two at the back there. Thank you very much. Yes, first. Is it a lady first? Yes.
Yes. I'm Jean Pearson. I was once a councillor. I gave up in 2011 when the person who has organised this took over. I was a little bit disappointed that I've come along as a local resident that, you know, we are in the older age bracket and there's very little mention of the older age bracket and what they can do. I mean, one person mentioned, I think, old people's homes, and there are a lot in this Mole Valley, a lot of homes, and they all want to be active. They don't want to sit back and do nothing. And I'm a bit disappointed, so can I advise those that are speaking after lunch and beyond to just mention there is another area, not just all young people.
Indeed, but don't worry, older people are being thought about up here, I can tell you.
Can I just respond to that as well?
Yes, you
Sorry.
can. You can.
Just very briefly, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's really important that when we talk about connecting and engaging, it's not just older, but it's about accessibility across the board for people who are more and less mobile in a whole range of different ways. So thank you for making that point.
Right, can I ask a quick... I just want to get Angus on... so much of what you said fascinated me. Can I just be practical about this for a minute? How many people are you connected up to already? How many people have you got on order? That lady's point there. Could somebody who's got a house on that horizon there, but no other houses around, can they benefit from... I was a bit confused about how easy it is to get onto your network.
Well, let me try and answer that. We have...
Yes.
You can hear me all right, can you? Let me try and answer that. We have at the moment we've gone live just before Christmas, so 2 months ago, with our first tranche of a mixture of residents and businesses around the silent pool in Guildford. We have about 10 at the moment in a couple of months live. And we're now busy deploying the network out to other areas. But it depends on can I, if I'm completely isolated on my own, miles from anywhere, get connected tomorrow? The answer is no, you can't. But if you are part of a community, if you're willing to get to work with your local community, then and you can meet the criteria that I outlined in investment, subscribers, and volunteers.
So you've only got one place running at the moment, but
we have one area at the moment. Yes, our main hub, which is around the silent pool area in Guildford, but we are rapidly moving out south, north. East from there, but we're only a small organisation at the moment, looking to grow. So if there are people that want to get involved and help, then we can rapidly expand, and we can make it much bigger.
Yes. And
does that
the
answer the question?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Right, another gentleman back there. Yes, please. Sir, name again, please.
Hello. Yeah, my name's Richard Moyes. I'm currently a councillor for Bookham North, and my question really is Professor Scarles. Do you think, as an area, we maximise the legacy of the Olympics in 2012? And if there's one thing we could still do, what would you suggest it would be?
That's a very good question. I think that's one of the flaws of many places that have had Olympics, is that the Olympics come and they go, and it's not necessarily leveraged as much as it could be. I think it also links to the wider question about the proximity to London, and actually what we can do to raise our identity as an area in that proximity. I think when it comes to Box Hill, areas like that, cycling, of course, I don't want to kind of open up because I know that's a huge debate, but that is one of the existing legacies that we do have in and around this area. You know, we do have the sporting legacy from the Olympics, and are we leveraging that in the right way? There's lots of opportunities that happen there. Yes, there are very strong views on both sides of the field. I'm not going to both sides of the fence. I won't shy away from that. But again, looking at the collaboration, looking at the ways in which you can actually, as businesses, work together to benefit from these people who are already coming through. Look to benefit from the people who you already have here, who are legacy from that, rather than bringing in more and more and more and not having the infrastructure, one, in place physical, but the collaboration to deal with it is an important point, I think.
I take it from your question, you don't think we've benefited enough from the legacy, is that? Yeah, you think more should be done? More cycling? Right.
Maybe not. You said that, not me. Yeah.
My days of being impartial are over, thank God. Okay, yes, in the front row here, please. Thank you very much. Might as well have the mic so everyone can hear. Yes, thank you.
I'm not loud enough usually. Yes, Charles Jarwood, Deputy Leader, Mole Valley District Council. I've got a question on broadband. We've just heard a great solution. One also reads about a coming solution that might be 5G. I just wondered whether you could comment on the difference between the two and the expectations of 5G.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. Very good question. Thank you for that. We often hear 5G is a solution to my broadband problems, and why do I need fibre? Two reasons really. In the Surrey Hills, it's very hilly, and 5G going through the air, you're still going to have lots of knot spots where you can't get the 5G. You also need a lot more masts because it's a smaller area, and also the speed is very variable and nothing like what we can offer. So if you're in an urban area or on the move, then 5G. Yes, but not really won't really work in the Surrey Hills, the areas that we're deploying.
Okay, thank you. Nice, clear answer there. It has to be our last question. I'm sure loads of you have them. You'll be able to talk to people later on. We're going to have another session and then a bit of lunch. But please, last question for this session.
I'm Jude Palmer. I'm a trail running coach, and I'm trying to collaborate with my local pub to bring runners to this amazing area. But what I lack is expertise on around tourism. Where can I go and find information about how to attract people out of the area to come into the area? I'm a one-person business, and I don't know how to do that. So where do I go?
Should you two not talk?
Yeah, I was going to say there are just to kind of a blatant little plug quickly, but for those of you who have these types of issues within the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, we already work with several of you in the room already, and we have our students working on dissertation projects. We have staff working on research projects. I am not doing this as an open book, kind of everyone come in and we'll solve your problems. Please note. However, if you would like to hear more about it, I'm more than happy to talk to you.
Well, I can definitely have a student.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, we get a quarter of an hour break. I hope as many of you as possible who want to go and have a coffee, if you can get to the front of the back of the queue or whatever. And we'll see you back here. We'll try and start again just after 12:15. 3 more sessions. Thank you. Great, thank you. I love to hear the buzz. That's great. It means what an interesting event it is. We're putting these speakers through it, making it so short for them, but as I keep saying, there's plenty of other opportunities. I hope at least sort of, make sure you either throw them your business card or grab their business card before you go. We still do that, don't we, in the age of broadband and all the other blooming things. Okay, right, let's go on. Same rules again. It's only keep you to about 10 minutes or just over, and there is the thing there, but don't worry too much about that because you'll see me looking sort of a bit daggers if you go on too long. And we've got 3 again, and actually one of our says here 5 minutes. Is that true, Simon? Are you down to 5 minutes? You don't look like a 5-minute man to me. Yeah.
I'll be flexible.
You'll be flexible.
I'll have this other 5 minutes.
Yeah, I see. We could start a little sort of market here in minutes, couldn't we? Okay, let's get started again. Will you please give a very warm welcome to Louise Williams, who is Rural Housing Enabler for Surrey.
Thank you. So, yes, I'm Louise Williams. I work as the Rural Housing Enabler in Surrey, which is a part of a partnership, the Surrey Rural Housing Partnership, of which Mole Valley is a key player. It consists of 4 local authorities and 2 specialist rural housing providers. And the project commenced in 2006 following DEFRA's Affordable Rural Commission. So whistle-stop tour of affordable housing and community-led housing. I'm not going to have the debate about whether housing is affordable because I think we all know the answer to that. But when I was thinking about putting together today's presentation, I wanted to do something different, and I spoke to my manager and said, what can I do that's different? And he said, don't forget that actually what you normally talk about still has relevance. And I thought about that. and I thought about what the key messages needed to be to get across to you this morning. So I gave up on trying to be all snazzy, all singing and all dancing, and I've just focused on the key messages for today. And I wanted to just take you through a few examples of what has been hitting the headlines. And so going back to when we started looking at rural housing as an issue, back in 2004, shelter priced out the rising costs of rural homes. Moving on, 2012, Britain's Prettiest Villages. We had during that time the Affordable Rural Housing Commission and the introduction of my role up and down the country. Lord Taylor Review, the Living Working Countryside. In 2011, we had the Localism Act. In 2012, we had the introduction of the National Planning Policy Framework. 2015, general election with the Conservative Housing Manifesto. Big issues there around extending the right to buy for housing association tenants. Followed very quickly by the 2016 Housing and Planning Act, introducing things like starter homes. And then 2018, we had changes to the National Policy Planning Framework. And they're just some of the initiatives that have been taken, and the story remains the same. So nothing really has changed. So what are those issues? Very, very quickly, rural homes on average are 26% more expensive than an urban home, with rural wages being on average £7,000 less. Your rural areas have less affordable housing to start with, about 19% less. And the impact of the reduction of Section 106 affordable requirements of small sites has a greater impact in rural areas. So where you're developing homes of 10 or less and there's no contribution for affordable housing, guess where you tend to develop homes of 10 or less. And then you have land values. So what about Mole Valley? So specifically, Mole Valley is £269,000 more expensive than the England average. So that makes house prices 14.9 times more expensive. Although you don't have the most, you don't earn the most, the average salary is around £37,000. So you need an income of around about £130,000 to afford an 80% mortgage. That's Mole Valley as an average. When you want to look at the rural areas, these are the house prices for all of the rural parishes in Mole Valley, and these are the average sold prices for last year according to the Land Registry. The blue line marks the English average house price, and the red is the average house price for Mole Valley. So you can see that some of those areas, and particularly those areas that we're standing very close to today, are some of the most expensive. So, thinking about how else I could grab your attention. So this is one of an ex-affordable housing. This property was sold under the right to buy in 1996. It resold in 2010 and is currently on the market for £487,000. This property is in Brockham, one of your rural villages. Brockham's lost over 50% of its affordable homes through the right to buy since 2009. And I wanted to get across the point about land values, because when you're looking to develop affordable housing, there are certain things which are more or less a fixed fee in terms of loans and finance and build costs. But in terms of income and where you get that income from and how much the rent is going to be, the amount that you're paying for the land has a really massive impact on that. So in rural areas, we try to pay agricultural rate or less. We're very lucky, we do have some landowners who will donate land for free, but it's a real big issue. And so where land is being snapped up by developers who can pay over the odds and then hope to put lots of open market housing on there, that impacts even further on the ability for us to develop affordable homes. And I just wanted to bring your attention, if you haven't already seen the stand out the back, this is an example of a scheme that's being brought forward in Brockham, although technically it lies in Betchworth. It's going to be, hopefully, subject to planning, 10 affordable homes and 5 self-build plots. It's been brought forward by the Anthony Poland Trust. And this is the accumulation of 10 years' worth of looking for a piece of land. And the land is being gifted, and because the land is being gifted, it's going to enable them to have 10 affordable homes at social rent, not open market rents, and 5 self-built properties sold at 75% of the open market. And that will remain in perpetuity, so that asset remains locked in the community. Average house prices in Brockham at the moment are around about the £650,000 mark. And actually Brockham still has a fairly good selection of stock, so that takes into account some of the cheaper properties. This is a quote from one of the members of the community who attended the recent consultation that we held regarding that scheme. And that's just one of the very many positive comments that came forward, because the scheme is going to be for local people and it benefits the local community, and there's a real level of support for it. So there's been lots of research done on the social value of affordable housing. These are just some of the benefits. I don't need to tell you about the importance of retaining balanced communities, which in turn help to retain local services, offering up employment opportunities, but it also gives people a sense of ownership about where they live. Affordable housing gives people an opportunity to put down roots and really feel part of the community, which sometimes if you're in private rented accommodation, you just feel that the rug can be pulled out at any moment. So how do we do this? Lots of ways. Primarily, we like to work alongside the local community through the parish council, sometimes a local charity or housing association. Rarely, a developer may come forward or a landowner, or there are also opportunities for community-led housing where a group of people may come forward because there's something that they want to deliver again. So the important thing is to start the conversation. So, community-led housing. Again, a whistle-stop tour. It's housing that is inspired and controlled by the community. It can take several forms, whether it's a community land trust, co-housing, self-build. The important thing is it's controlled and developed by the community. We can offer quite a lot of help and support and advice in developing that. The important thing is to decide what it is you want to achieve and then agree how you're going to achieve it. So really it doesn't matter. What we'd say is, again, just start chatting and deciding what it is that you want. And this is one of my colleagues' favourite quotes. So if we hadn't been given the opportunity to lead an affordable housing project, we're probably the same people who would have opposed it. And in Surrey, that's probably quite true. So how can we help? So we can do quite a lot to help you understand what the need is, consultation, technical support, partnership working. There's lots of funding available at the moment for start-up groups. So do come and talk to us. Our contact details are here. And hopefully by the end of this week, our new website. So, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And look, 9 seconds.
Hey! Whoa! Yeah, that's right, yes. Louise, thank you. Star performer in terms of time. But also, so many important things you said, and I'm sure there'll be tons of blooming questions about it, so we'll move on. OK, let's keep going as quick as we can. Simon Matthews, Director of Matthews Associates, but you're all about the rural economy and economic consultant, etc., etc. The floor is yours, sir. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon. I'm nearly between you and your lunch. Lucy is following me on. I'm normally here talking about funding opportunities, and I feel a bit of a fraud because I'm not going to be talking much about funding, but I'm going to talk about what you, as an audience, need to do to keep some funding flowing into rural areas. The feel very close to this event because I was actually one of the team that wrote the original the strategy here, which actually led to this and recommended this event happening. And to see 120 odd people in the room is really great to see that Mole Valley has really sort of captured and grasped the importance of the rural areas and the rural economy. I want to talk about funding because this is a key thing, and it's interesting to hear Caroline talking about tourism, which was one of the key measures for funding, Angus talking about broadband, which is another area that was being funded, and Mark and his pubs, which also received funding. And this is all funding that's come through this programme called RDPE, the Rural Development Programme for England. And I'm not taking any political stance here, taking Nick's warning. This is just facts. And so whether you were pro-Brexit, leave, remain, or whatever, this is just facts of where we are now and where we're heading. There was, in the fund, quite a bit of money, as you can see, £3.1 billion for looking after our environment, which I'm not so interested in because this isn't the bit to do with the economy. There's 141 productivity, countryside productivity, a big chunk of cash, 177 million in the growth programme, and 138 million in LEADER. And it's these bits up here that we, in Surrey and in Mole Valley, have had a share of. And the total fund for the UK is nearly £500 million worth of funding on what they call the socio-economic budget. And I'm not going to go into detail because it's sort of slides from DEFRA which sort of say where it was. But the important thing is LEADER was a local fund. And Kathy, you're in the room, Kathy Miles at the back. She was running the Surrey LEADER programme. The growth programme, I was the chairman of that programme for the coastal capital area. And the other two programmes were run from DEFRA in London. Locally, we had about 1.6 million, I'm told 1.8 million to spend in LEADER funding for Surrey, which is a fantastic sum of money. Locally, in the growth programme in the coastal capital area, we had about 3.75 million to spend. And we spent a lot of time promoting that. And some of you may have been to the funding workshops we ran all over East Surrey. Karina was there at them, selling our wares, telling people to apply for that funding. The great news is that we got about 12 million, nearly 13 million pounds worth of bids into that fund. Now that may sound, well, why have you promoted it when you only got 3.75 million? About half of those applicants will fall by the wayside for various reasons. And I'm vying with DEFRA at the moment to get our fund topped up if anywhere else in the UK doesn't spend their money. So in a local terms, we talked about £500 million nationally, but we had a fair slug of cash come here locally. Countryside stewardship, that's the one looking after the environment. Countryside productivity, if there's any farmers in the room, there will be one more call for countryside productivity coming out about the next month. So if you're a farmer, you're aware of your DEFRA contact, there'll be one more call for that, it's the last call. Growth programme, that's the EFRAD money, is the money that we were promoting, which is the big sums of cash. And unfortunately, Chris from Denby's has gone. But he was a recipient of that, and he's building his vineyard hotel. He's putting his new machinery in to allow his wine to be, the corks in the fizzy bottles to be done properly and all the fizz and everything. And he put a bid in, he was successful. He's now got the money coming out of DEFRA, and you can see the building work going on in his vineyard. There are many other applicants I can't talk about now because it's confidential until they get all approved in this area, including some local authority bids as well. So that fund is currently being spent at the moment. And LEADER, £1.8 million worth of funding, locally controlled by the local LEADER Action Group, organised by Kathy, chaired by Hugh Broom, from my memory, and that was money going directly into the economy here as well. Small businesses, village halls, growth money as well, that was really important. So sort of in summary, we had about 456 million quid, nearly £500 million worth of rural money that could only be spent in the rural economy. So where am I leading to? Well, at the moment, we've got a situation that the government, we're now Brexiting, we're exiting in some way, deal, no deal, we don't know, but the government produced a thing called the Industrial Strategy, and that is their template for economic growth going forward. And it's got 10 great pillars on there, upgrading infrastructure, improving procurement, all the things on there. And it was published, it was a 180-odd page document. And me as a rural person looking through that, I was trying to find references to rural in there. How many references to the rural economy do you think were in this 180-page document? Slightly better. 4. 4 references. And the problem with those 4 references was they didn't say the rural economy was really good. It said, and countryside, and countryside, and countryside. It was just a passing reference in there, which is really worrying because this is the strategy going forward for government. And we've got 4 references in that strategy. Now, going back, why this is really important is that that document at the back there, the industrial strategy, is being done locally as well. And all this is leading to something called the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And those of you who dug through the party prospectus, the future of funding that we've been talking about is going to come out of this fund, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And why is it important? Well, if you imagine the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is this shark pool, this is the money in there, and swimming around in this shark pool is aerospace industry, pharmaceuticals, advanced engineering, automotive. These are the big sharks in this pool. This is this new fund that's going to happen. Unfortunately, this is rural coming in. And our little green fish is there. Now, we don't know how big this fund's going to be yet. The consultation that government have said forward has been delayed 3 times now. We've now been given the wonderful word from government, it will be released shortly. Not sure what shortly means. But our worry is this £500 million worth of funding we had before, which was ring-fenced for rural economy. DEMBIs benefit from it, local authorities have benefit from it, small businesses benefit from it. You're now swimming in this shark pool. And at the moment, we've got no assurances from government at all that any of this money will be ring-fenced for rural or be pointed at, will be rural-proofed. So I spend my time going in and out of DEFRA at the moment, working with the Country Landowners Association, with the National Farmers Union, with the Countryside Alliance, with all these organisations, banging the table. I'm there tomorrow, trying to make sure that when this new fund appears, in whatever form it's going to, we don't get swallowed by the sharks. So I'm asking a question of you here, sort of a couple of few things I want you to do as a 120 audience and all your networks around you. I need you to bang the table as well. So if you're dealing with the local enterprise partnerships, Coaster Capital or Enterprise M3, ask them, how are you rural-proofing your local industrial strategy? Are you mentioning the rural economy in there? If you're having anything with DEFRA, if you work with DEFRA at all, make sure that you bang the table with them, with the rural community councils, which is Surrey Community Action, with the departments in government, if you're a member of the Country Landowners Association or National Farmers Union, and also with your local MPs as well. And I put on there a couple of people, and this is just a sort of a statement, it's not aimed to be political, it's just taking a fact is we could lose a lot. So we're concerned that the Rural Economic Growth Funding, RDPE, of which many people in this room have benefited, previously worth around £500 million, will be lost if transitioned into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund without any rural proofing or rural ring fencing. Generally, the local enterprise partnerships have failed to recognise the importance of the value of the rural economy, and government's own industrial strategy only makes 4 passing references to the rural economy. So please, if these slides are being circulated, write to Paul Beresford, write to the Secretary of State Michael Gove, who is a Surrey MP, write to the DEFRA Minister, Lord Cameron of Dillington, not other Cameron, and Neil Parish, who's the chair of the Environment and Food and Rural Affairs Committee. And what was great to see, the House of Lords broadcast done just before the half-term break, Michael Gove was given a very hard time by the House of Lords committee about how he is going to protect the rural economy going forward. Michael Gove is brilliant on environment, absolutely loves the environment, but hasn't thought about the balance between rural economy and rural environment. So please, if one thing comes out of this, we have benefited from leader money with Cathy, 1.8 million. We've benefited from a share of the 3.75 million, maybe more. If we're going to have any hope of getting funding for your businesses, and some of you have been mentioned here, we need to bang the table now while the government is making and thinking about this, before it's set in stone. Because I won't be here in the future, maybe promoting more funding and future funding, as Corinne and I have been around and about, making sure that you get a share of that funding going forward. So, a bit of a strange one. I'm not promoting funding at the moment. I'm saying let's not lose future funding. Thank you very much.
Simon, excellent. Again, a lot of questions begged there, I think, but see how we get on. Okay, right, our final speaker, again, set the 10-minute target, but slight overrun, we won't worry too much about that. We're coming now to somebody who's got a business run locally, the owner of Fire and Iron at Rowhurst Forge in Leatherhead, Lucy Quenell. Lucy.
everyone. This is London, and I've always loved the way that at 7 o'clock this great finger of land comes all the way down to meet the northernmost tip of Mole Valley. I was born in a house right on that border, and the pub opposite our house, Mark might be interested to hear about this, had different fire regulations at each end of the bar because half was in London and half was in Surrey. So I'm almost a London girl, but it says Leatherhead on my birth certificate, so my loyalties are in Mole Valley. I was born into a very small farming family. Who were also blacksmiths from the 1930s onwards. 40 years ago, the M25 tore right through that landscape, and our farming activity had to stop. But fortunately, our crumbly old house survived just 50 metres from the M25, and the ironworks were able to continue. And I chose to make ironworking my profession as well. And in 2011, the wood next door to us went on the market as land with strategic development potential. And I'm passionate about landscape and ecology, and I felt very strongly that we should be saving this landscape. I started the Save Teesdale Wood campaign, and against all the odds, in 2012, the community purchased Teesdale Wood to run it as a nature reserve for the purposes of ecology, community, education, and heritage. So what on earth have I got to offer to a rural summit? I'm not really sure. I know a lot about blacksmithing. It's been my full-time career for 30 years. I've run it as a tourist attraction throughout, so I know a bit about that. I know about rural living and working. I've been the victim of rural business crime many times. I know all about the M25, my constant companion day and night throughout that whole process. I was described last year as a leading expert in litter and fly tipping, to my horror. It's not far off. I'm well practiced in handling those every day. My university subject years ago was English literature with a module land, landscape and literature. And I love local Mole Valley literature and how it relates to our landscapes. And I've had 7 years now of managing a woodland as an amateur. And the associated countryside roles that have come with that, I sit on Mole Valley CPRE committee. I'm chairman of the Leatherhead and District Countryside Protection Society. And I'm hoping to do a Master's in Forestry and Society because I'm really interested in how on earth we're going to marry tree disease management with public accessibility. And I know that top rural edge of Mole Valley really, really well. I like the theme of edges. Transform Leatherhead at the last 3 public forums have said we're not tinkering around the edges. And I know what they mean. They mean they're going to focus on big town centre improvements. But I want them to tinker around the edges. They need to tinker around the edges. I'm going to give you a tour of my edge of Mole Valley, of our district. That's what greets you when you arrive. A few yards along the road. Daily. Sometimes. And a major dump of rubbish, less common but huge, last winter, which also involved the burning day and night of plastics for several days in a row. Teesdale Wood was in a similar mess when we took it on, including the streams and river network immediately around it. That's a pollution incident on the Rye, and a fish that died in the mole in a pollution incident, one of over 1,000 dead fish in that incident last year. I'm really struck by the hazardous nature of what I'm handling on an almost daily basis. This is hydrochloric acid, sodium hypochlorite, a wheelbarrow load of bits pulled out of a small area of woodland with a magnet on a stick. Deadly helium balloons, the omnipresent helium balloons. Courtesy of Wildlife Aid in Leatherhead, a hedgehog they euthanised because it had just grown into a simple single rubber band.
The businesses around that rural edge don't handle their waste very well, in my opinion. Not all of them, but some of them. That then attracts rats and mice, and the knee-jerk reaction is to put out rat bait stations. It's the worst thing they can do on the edge of countryside. The rats and mice are then eaten by owls and buzzards and foxes, and we deal with an awful lot of dead wildlife that's been poisoned. And my eyes have been opened to dumped domestic animals. It's quite a big thing. This is a lurcher who was abandoned, and sadly, after 2 weeks of failing to catch him, he was hit by a car and killed. Worried Cat is one of 3 sibling kittens who grew up on the motorway embankment and is the 8th cat that we have formally taken in and neutered and spayed to kind of try and keep this feral and abandoned pet colony at bay. National disgraceful pastime. Sorry to lower the tone of this beautiful establishment. And irresponsible land ownership. This is an illegal clear fell by a landowner hoping to develop greenbelt land. And a copycat, teenagers saw that. A short time later, they had a go themselves, why not, nearby, and they took out 46 trees in one evening. Legal importation of waste to contour greenbelt lands, but it's higher than permitted. It ignores the 15-metre required buffer zone, and that's what inert soils look like. An open sewer next to a countryside trail public footpath in a town that hosts seeability. And similarly, I love this one. This is a public footpath, a rural public footpath going directly to Combat Stress and Queen Elizabeth Foundation for Disabled People, and it's had Armco across the entrance to it for 40 years. Along the same road, a missing pavement last winter, opposite a bus stop where my neighbour was killed, crossing by a car doing over 60 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour limit. So we have problems. You can see we have problems. We also have solutions. We have strong support from Mole Valley District Council, and we have an endless supply of fantastic volunteers. Most people want to live in and work in and visit and support places that are ethical, that understand their rural areas, that look after them and take responsibility. People want to roll up their sleeves and get stuck in. It's very sociable as well. It's great for mental and physical health. We have volunteers at our last event ranging in age from 19 to 87 on one day. So people are fantastic, and the reward is obvious. I'm going to flick you through these slides, so just enjoy them. This is exactly the same landscape. And we even got a lid back on the sewer. So back to where I began. All my life I've championed non-financial values, and people always say I'm a romantic and an idealist, and it's not economically viable, it's not economically interesting. I completely disagree. This sign, I reckon tens of thousands of cars a day pass this sign coming from London to Mole Valley, and this is what we greet them with. This is a fantastic advertising opportunity if I put my economic head on instead of my romantic head on. So as well as cleaning up these edges, we could be doing so much for the whole district. If this was a B&B, would you stay in it? To be fair, this is a Surrey County Council sign, and we're Mole Valley today. So let's find the Mole Valley sign, which is a few yards further along the road. Oh, it's the 4th clutterance along. It's that one, next to the sign that tells you you're going to be delayed for 7 weeks. I don't think we're doing our best. I have 30 seconds left to say, I don't think it's just because I'm a blacksmith that I see life in terms of gateways and entrances and first impressions. Edge habitat in ecology is supremely important to the health of the whole. It's famously so in ecology circles. And I think that can be applied to towns and districts and counties. This is the entrance to Mole Valley, not just to Leatherhead. It would be a cheap, easy and quick fix to turn that into something that really sells what we have to offer, the wonderful heritage and culture and literature and ecology and our responsibilities and our skills and our produce. We could be shouting that to the world, and instead we're giving them this. And I think the benefits, non-financial and financial, would be fantastic to the whole district with this tiny little change. We need to tinker around those edges. Thank you.
Well done. Well, Lucy, what can I say? Powerful talk and a message reminding us how beautiful this place should always be and how so often it is not. And some of the little solutions that you talk about, little solutions, quite straightforward solutions, are sort of within our grasp, but we need to make an effort, don't we? Okay, right, let's just have a few minutes for questions. What questions do you have? I certainly have at least one. Can I pick up a question straight away then? I wanted to actually ask Louise, I just was fascinated when you talked about the Brockham development, being very familiar with Brockham itself. Did you say the land was gifted?
Yes.
In other words, someone just said, here,
Local landowner gifted the land because he recognised the social value of providing affordable homes for local people.
Yeah. Was there some quid pro quo for that? Was
No.
he given something else? Or
No.
how many other people are landowners around who could do the same thing? One wonders. I just throw it out there. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Any other questions quickly while we're here on what you've heard today? Gentleman over here, if you just wait for the microphone, and to whom you wish to direct your question.
Hello, my name is Stuart Mclaughlin. I'm a parish councillor. I've been 10 years now for Cold Harbour up on Leith Hill. Question for Louise. I'm also a major believer in affordable housing. I thoroughly agree with your presentation about the devastating effect which the Right to Buy scheme had in the 90s. It devastated rural communities. One thing you mentioned about the Brockham scheme was that the land was held in perpetuity. The thing I've had lots of discussions with landowners and residents already in my area, and they've all been concerned that in the future government policy could change again, and the land, any affordable homes would then be put on the open market. How can that be guaranteed that it won't happen?
Okay, so there are a number of mechanisms which allow us to do that. The scheme in Brockham coming forward is a rural exception site which at the moment has protection for that, and we have nationally been doing a lot of work, like Simon, to rural-proof the housing legislation that came out, and the homes that are going to be built will be owned by a local housing trust. They won't be sold on the open market, and there will be an asset lock on the self-build to ensure that they can't be sold on the open market without that discount. The community-led housing that I very briefly touched on enables us to develop in rural areas where perhaps people are concerned about the risk of right to buy or the right to acquire. But the housing associations, the specialists that we work with, are very keen that any homes built under those rural exception policies you won't be able to buy those. Doesn't mean you don't have the right to buy, you just don't have the right to buy those properties.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. No, that was understood. Covenants, didn't lands have covenants on them? I don't know, that's another thing, isn't it? Okay, a gentleman in the front row here, please, yeah, thank you.
Hello, it's Matt Morris from Surrey Hills Adventure Company. Question for Simon. What's the current position in terms of grants then? You've talked about the outgoing portfolio grants and the one that might be to come. Kind of what's the gap in time perhaps between where we currently are and where we're going to go next? And is there anything that's filling it?
Very good question. Unfortunately, the B word, Brexit, has got in the way. These programmes were European programmes that were supposed to last until end of 2020 and beyond. Because of the decision to exit the EU, those programmes have been brought forward and the funding windows closed down. We haven't lost any money, we just brought forward the amount that was being spent in the window, so we haven't lost in that programme, we hope we haven't lost. The question is, and everyone is asking this question, is what is the future for funding? And we only have literally a sentence in the Conservative manifesto that said the UK Shared Prosperity Fund will be created. We know that the Department for Communities and Local Government is working on it. I've met with them a number of times. They are trying to work out what this fund will be. And likewise, because it's only one fund, everybody is there at the moment arguing for their place in it. So if I was representing the automotive industry, the pharmaceuticals or whatever, they were the sharks in my illustration. I'm concerned is our rural voice, which in the old days in the EU were protected by the EU rules and regulations, which were as annoying to everybody as they are, but they did protect it. They will not be there in the new fund. So we are arguing with our colleagues in the Country Landowners Association and the NFU for some of that funding to be rural proofed or rural ring fenced. Whether we succeed or not, we don't know. Our guess is nothing will happen until we know what's happening with Brexit. Then the consultation will start about the fund, but it will take a number of possibly years for the fund to actually go live. So we have a funding hiatus at the moment where the old EU funding is finished and there is nothing really in the new. So it's not good news for businesses, but if you can write, email or whatever, we may be able to bring that forward at all. So not good news at the present moment, I'm afraid.
Lobby, lobby, lobby is what you're talking about. Okay, anybody else want to come in quickly on any of the things that we have heard in this particular session? Lots to think of. Okay, I think it's just about time when last few words from me. First of all, I want to thank all of our speakers, these three and the three we heard before. Do give them another round of applause because it was... we set them hard targets, and but they all did very well, and lots of things, very thought-provoking things, lots of bits of information flying about, and carry on talking to each other. And I just want to say that when I was asked to get involved in this, I thought, oh, well, sounds interesting, we'll have a go. But I do want to congratulate Mole Valley District Council for putting this on. It seems to me to... well, yeah, by all means, give it. When did I ever encourage applause for a council? I don't think I've ever done that in my whole life. It seems to be an extremely worthwhile effort made all round, and I thank everybody I've been in touch with, and anyone who's worked behind the scenes. The gentleman putting his hand up in a rather... Have I spoke for too long?
Intended to put the slides onto something publicly accessible.
Is it? Perhaps we can talk about that, yeah. You're asking if slides can be put on and ways. And presumably all of this is, I can see, being recorded in all sorts of shapes and forms, and there will be social media attached to that as well. But that's all from me. Karen Bringham, Chief Executive of Mole Valley District Council, will have the last word. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi. What a buzz there's been in the room today. It's been absolutely great to hear everything that's been going on. As Nicholas said, I'm Karen. It's my great honour to be the Chief Exec at Mole Valley District Council and come to work every day in this really, really stunningly beautiful place. I just want to thank you all for coming today. It's been great to hear what you've had to say. I've been delighted to be able to offer Nick his opportunity to chair his first summit. It's been brilliant to explore all the issues. I'd like to say a huge thanks to Nicholas and to our speakers for giving up their time, for their thought-provoking presentations. And I suppose it's all very interesting, isn't it, to sit today, half a day, and we talk and we hear the ideas, but the key thing is what happens now, what happens this afternoon when we go back to the office. So, I mean, when I've walked around this morning, I can see there's lots of informal conversations going on and networks being made. That's brilliant, because hopefully that will reap its own dividends. But for me and Mole Valley, it's about us now thinking about what we can do. We've got some resources. How can we use those best to support you in rural communities, whether that be around tourism, broadband, rural housing, funding opportunities, working together to support our environment. We'll be giving thought to that, and we'll be telling you as soon as we possibly can what happens next. But there's two things that might happen this week with any luck. The first thing is I am going to find a bucket and a sponge, and we'll wash that sign. And after I do that, Caroline mentioned really good timing, Caroline. But you mentioned about tourism and being able to use the virtual reality headsets to support dementia. Mole Valley Life, which is a company owned by Mole Valley District Council, on Thursday we are launching our own virtual reality headsets. We've got 30 care homes coming into Pitbrook, and we've been doing some pilot work. Users of care homes say that where we've taken the headsets out to residents, they feel more relaxed. They're taken away to different places. But at the minute we're taking them to places like Thailand and beaches, I want us to take them to Box Hill, to places that they know, that they love. So this week we'll try and figure out if we can actually do that. So without further ado, huge thanks. Enjoy your lunch.